programs is through more economic freedom. And again, economic freedom and corruption, right? Countries with more economic freedom have less corruption. And it's very, very clear. Countries with more economic freedom have less corruption, and ones with less economic freedom have more corruption. And very, very clear correlation there. And again, it's worth pointing out that correlation doesn't prove causation, but when we see example after example in both theory and in practice of greater economic freedom leading to better results for rich and poor alike, I think some very, very, very strong inferences can be made. And so that brings us to Bitcoin's impact on economic freedom and digital currencies in general, because it makes it easier for anyone, anywhere, to start a business in any country, accept payments from anyone else, anywhere in the world, just like that. It enforces property rights in the sense that now anybody can save their money in a digital currency that can't be devalued by the government printing more money, or they can't have their bank account frozen, or they can't have their ability to accept payments from people around the world blocked, which then promotes free trade and enables people to freely contract with other people all over the world. And very importantly, it enables people to opt out of corrupt systems. So I was born in 1979. So while I was alive, one Zimbabwe dollar was worth more than one US dollar. And today it's several hundred million or maybe several hundred trillion Zimbabwe dollars to equal one US dollar. So that's an example of how one government with one incredibly stupid and ignorant economic policy absolutely destroyed the currency within a country within my lifetime and impoverished all sorts of people living in that country because of that. And at the time that happened, it was impossible for those people to have a way to opt out. But now, thanks to the invention of digital currencies, anytime a government tries to inflate its currency, people have an option to use something other than that. And most people who study economics realize that competition provides lower prices and a higher quality service. And we know that when it comes to things like tennis shoes and food and cars and housing, that competition brings down the price of goods and provides a higher quality service. Well, until now, people didn't really think of the issuance of money as something that people could compete in. But now, suddenly, all over the world, all sorts of monies are going to have to compete against other forms of money in the marketplace of money. So now people have a choice between Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Core, Ethereum, Monero, the Korean won, the US dollar, the Japanese yen, the Mexican peso, and it's impossible for anyone to block these people from choosing which one of these currencies they want to use. Governments can slow down adoption, but at the end of the day, they can't stop it due to the decentralized nature of blockchain technologies. So now we're going to see all over the world a competition amongst different currencies that will lead to a better user experience at a lower price. So that's an incredibly exciting thing that's happening because of digital currencies and Bitcoin Cash specifically. And so again, we have a quote from Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase. And he says, creating more economic freedom in the world will serve as a giant economic stimulus package for the world, accelerate innovation, reduce wars, make the poorest 10% better off, overthrow corrupt governments, and raise happiness. That's a pretty darn powerful quote there. And again, I'm Roger Veer, the CEO of Bitcoin.com, and I say that Bitcoin Cash and digital currencies are the best tools the world has ever seen to accomplish these goals. So if you're excited about economically stimulating the world, accelerating innovation, reducing wars, and making the poorest 10% better off, and overthrowing corrupt governments and raising happiness, get involved with digital currencies today because they're literally the best tools the world has ever seen to achieve those goals. And so if you were a government or someone that didn't like these things, how would you stop this? And we're going to dive a little bit deep into internal Bitcoin politics here at this point, but I think it's important. And if you wanted to stop all of these things from taking place, you would advocate for 1 megabyte blocks on the Bitcoin blockchain, which would intentionally create high fees, less privacy, slow confirmations, and unreliable transactions. And for those of you that aren't deep into the internal politics of what's been happening within Bitcoin, last year on August 1st, Bitcoin split into 2 versions of Bitcoin. There's now Bitcoin Core, BTC, and there's Bitcoin Cash, BCH. And Bitcoin Core had BTC ticker symbol and managed to bring a lot of the goodwill and name recognition of Bitcoin along with it. But it's Bitcoin in name only. It's not the Bitcoin that became popular to begin with by providing fast, cheap, and reliable transactions. That version of Bitcoin today is Bitcoin Cash. And the policies that were intentionally advocated by the Bitcoin Core and Blockstream have resulted in fewer users than there would have otherwise been, fewer nodes than there would have otherwise been, a lower amount of adoption around the world than there otherwise would have been, a lower amount of privacy on the Bitcoin Core network than there would have been, a lower Bitcoin market cap than there would have otherwise been, lower market share than there would have otherwise been, and less censorship resistance than there would have otherwise been. And we've seen that happen with BTC's market share in the last year has plummeted from close to 90% to around 35% today. And we saw it happen as people worried about the blocks becoming full on the Bitcoin Core network. And then as soon as the blocks became full, that's when all sorts of altcoins, which are wonderful. I want people to use whatever cryptocurrency is the most useful to them. But it's frustrating because we went over all of these wonderful ways in which Bitcoin and digital currencies are going to bring more economic freedom to the world and all the benefits brought by economic freedom. Those benefits have been delayed by this scaling debate within Bitcoin. And so we're several years behind adoption of where we would have been otherwise. And so we're several years behind schedule of being able to receive all those benefits that are created by more economic freedom in the world. And so we see very clearly that all sorts of businesses that otherwise would have been considering building on Bitcoin are busy building on Ethereum and Quantum and Dash and all sorts of other ones out there. And it happened at the exact same time the Bitcoin Core network became unusable by the intentional design of these Blockstream and Bitcoin Core developers. And again, we can see in this chart, it's a little bit technical here, but very, very clearly in the orange line was the amount of Bitcoin transactions happening each day until it hit the 1 megabyte block size limit. And so the growth rate of Bitcoin around the world has clearly been stifled, and therefore the amount of economic freedom brought to the world by Bitcoin has been delayed and stifled as well. And so that brings us to where we're at today. What has the market done to solve the problem? And thankfully there's 1,001 different altcoins out there today that are all competing with each other to try and provide a better service at a lower price and a better user experience for people all around the world. So I invite all of you out there to try different cryptocurrencies, install the wallets on your phone, experiment with them, learn about them, and tell your friends and family and get started with them. Because if you're excited by the world having more economic freedom and all the wonderful things that economic freedom brings, digital currencies are the best tool we've ever had to bring more economic freedom to the world. And so go and get started today. If you go to bitcoin.com, we have all the tools to help you get started. If you go to free.bitcoin.com, anyone can get some free Bitcoin Cash right now today at free.bitcoin.com. And that's me. For anybody that doesn't know, I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in Bitcoin and digital currency startups. I'm currently the CEO of bitcoin.com, and the reason I'm so excited about them is because they're bringing more economic freedom to the entire world. And I think I have some time for some questions. If anybody in the audience has some questions or comments, I'd love to open it up to the audience for that. Maybe put your hand up right here.
통역 가능하신가요?
English translator 있어요? 없어?
제가 그 TPS라고 전송 속도에 따르면은 제가 생각하기엔